always wanted to be the innovative group. We feel very strongly that we always have been, right? We feel like we did a big shift in how solar was sold and the ease in which it's done. And that's something that we've carried on ever since the very beginning. So
let's go. We are going straight off the board here. Look what we got, Mr. David Wilson. If you guys don't know, this is the CRO of Solo, one of the biggest brands in the industry. What's up, David? Thanks for being here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joe and Josh. Good to be here.
Have you met Josh before? Have you guys met?
No, but thankfully he's got his name tag right there. So I've got it. We're good.
You're like, good to meet you, David.
Yeah, good to meet you as well. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited. You guys jumped right into it.
I mean, why not? Let's get right into it. Be efficient with our time. I know you're a busy man and you're making time for us and the community to learn more about you and what Solo is up to. But before we kind of get into it, I'd like to do a little start off, let the community know more about you and, what you're doing. How'd you end up, with Solo at the beginning anyway? What's that story?
It's kind of a funny story, right? So when I graduated college, I did international economics up at Weber State, Utah. Graduated Saturday, started as a stockbroker on a Monday, right? So I always wanted to be in finance. So started at Fidelity downtown in Salt Lake. Got my 7 in 63, was doing that for a while, and then just decided it wasn't really the route I wanted to take. So stopped doing that. Me and my friends started a company called Gather in Utah. So if you're in Utah and you've ever had someone knock on your door and say, hey, I'm going around for, Governor Herbert, Governor Cox, and Mike Lee, or these people, medical marijuana, the teachers union, all these things. If you've ever gotten a knock on your door and a signature packet, that's our company doing the ballot access. So we did that for a little bit, but politics are boom and bust, right? There's an election year and then there's not. So there's nothing to do. So while there was nothing to do, one of my friends named Ramsey, he asked me if I wanted to help him sell solar software. And I had no clue about solar, never heard of it, never thought about it, but started doing that. He left to go to a company called Noki about a month later, and then referred me to the guys running Solo at the time. And we're just like, hey, you should work with them. And he's been doing the work, just keep going. And so 8 years later, here we are, just still working at Solo. So it's been an awesome adventure.
What solar software was that, real quick, Josh? What was that? What solar software was that before Solo? You're saying?
No, it was Solo. It's been Solo the whole time. So since about 2017, it's been Solo the whole time. So it's about January of 17, just started selling it. And I'll never forget, there was one of the nicest people. Her name's Tanya Hall. She was working for Power Home way back in the day. I mean, this was way back in the day. And
Wow.
I did a demo with her and I was like, hey, Tanya, my name's David. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never worked in solar and I don't know what this does, but I'm hoping I can run you through it. And everything you think is cool, just tell me why. And I'm going to take some really good notes. And if at the end you think it's cool enough to buy, let me know. And that would be awesome. And so Tanya and I were good friends for a long time. And she helped me for several years after that, giving me, advice and input and all kinds of things. So kind of a funny start.
So can you answer the age-old question of what's in the water that makes everyone in Utah really good at solar and in the solar industry?
I don't know what does it. I think that the religious context of the LDS Church, and everyone does a mission here, right? I always say if you can sell God, you can sell anything. And quarter of the population here sold God for 2 years. So after that, solar and pest sounds a little bit easier than taking the Bible door to door. So I think that's about it. And then once it's in the culture and you've got X percent of people having success, making the money they did, remember back in the day when they were doing alarms and you do the 6-figure summer, you'd go out, knock all summer, come back, you didn't work the rest of the year. Once you create that kind of atmosphere where that's an opportunity, everyone's going to do what they can to make that work. So I think that just snowballs. And before you know it, Utah's kind of door to door capital USA kind of thing. So I don't know if it's in the water, but it's definitely here in the churches.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated about that. So a lot of my experience in solar initially was in Australia. And because there's so many backpackers in Australia, one of the primary jobs that backpackers do to make some money for a month or two and then go travel is door knocking and sell. I mean, when I got there, I sold everything door to door. And so it's in the culture. And so when you get there and you're living in the hostels, you're like, dude, just come door to door. And if you've never done it before, you're like, door to door. Like, no, man, it's fun. And then the culture for door to door across the country is amazing. But then in the US, it really doesn't exist other than Utah in terms of like a cultural, that's just what you do.
Yeah. Do you guys have any clue? You guys would know way better than I do. I wonder what percentage of kind of door knockers countrywide are from Utah or have roots to like a Utah company.
I think it's 99.9%, I believe is.
You're probably right.
The roots are there, right? Because it's always like a core company one day that just like kills it for a few years and breeds extreme talent. And then those guys go across the country and make amazing companies. That's what happened in Australia with us and Solar as well. So probably everyone is connected by at least 1 or 2 degrees to a single or maybe 1 or 2 companies in Utah 10 to 15 years ago.
You are probably right. And Josh, what were you doing door to door in Australia? What were you selling?
We were doing everything. So I initially started in door-to-door running operations, doing virtual for, we're just a big marketing company. It was energy. It was like World Wildlife Federation, fund. So donations. And then what else we were doing? Little things. We were doing paintings at one point. And then Solar came in very relatively quickly to when I moved into the operation. And then they gave me that operation, and we grabbed all of our door-to-door guys and our virtual guys, call center guys, and said, we're just doing solar now. And then we built one of the largest solar dealers in like a year across Australia, just because it like moved so quick and we had all that infrastructure.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
No shortage of sunshine there either. You've got
no shortage of sunshine, but also backpackers who are there. They're only there for 6 to 12 months. They have nothing to lose. They want to party. They want a good time. They want to make some money. The recruitment pool was bloody amazing. I was head of recruitment at one point. I was probably doing 1 to 2 group interviews per day, 50 to 100 people. It was just absolutely wild. Yeah. Well, then I came to the US and tried to get people in sales jobs, and I got a big surprise because no one had the chutzpah to do it. No, it was this totally different culture. Never did it in Utah though, so
yeah, it's entirely different. It's funny you mentioned partying. So when I did do, I did a stint with the church. Obviously, I was talking about selling God earlier. So I went to Quebec up in Canada, and the people there are called the Quebecois. And I will say there's only 2 people that there's only one group, one culture that parties harder than Australians, and it's Quebecois. I mean those 2 groups of people, man, they can party like nobody's business. So that backpacker party life in Australia is unheard of.
I loved it, man. Changed my life. And I still, a vacation for me is finding a hostel in Southeast Asia and, drinking cheap beer on a beach. I'll be changed for my entire life just because of the Australian backpacker culture.
It's cool. Well, I mean, not to get too off topic, but so my wife, she's British, but she did a summer in Australia. Instead of door knocking, she picked blueberries on a farm for her work visa and temporary visa to stay. And then Southeast Asia, we actually met at a bus stop in Thailand.
Love it, man. I did tomato picking for my visa in Australia. Okay. Yeah.
It's funny that's the thing is you get your visa, you do whatever you kind of want, you stay in Australia and hang out.
Yeah, well, mine extended for a better part of a decade and ended up founding a national EPC. So it went a bit of a different direction. But, when you're only there for 6 to 12 months, maybe you extend for another year, you got nothing to lose, you got a cool culture, you want to make a bit of cash and then go travel up the coast, man. It's the life. Absolute life.
Sounds like it. Well, that's awesome, man. That's such a cool backstory.
Well, speaking of extreme talent, David, you must be super talented. If you were in charge of sales of Solo from the beginning, well, actually, when did Solo first year actually was?
So back in the day, we were called Phoenix, PHX, and that's still on a URL, right? So you got phx.co.
Right. That's where it comes from.
And then it rebranded to Solo in 2018. So Solo was, kind of officially, on the papers and all that stuff as of 2018.
I say that because Solo has been the industry standard, taken over right from the beginning, taking a huge, share of the solar community from the beginning. How did that start off so fire? It was just amazing software. Was it a big need, or was it
his sales pitch, man? He was just such a good sales guy. He was saying, "I don't know what it does, but check it out." So obviously that worked.
Best sales pitch ever. I have no clue what I'm doing. Just like listen, and if it's cool, can I have some money? And that was the approach. No,
honestly, sometimes, baby.
Yeah, I mean, and that truly was the approach for the first little while, right? Like I had no clue, and there wasn't an infrastructure and a training department and a group, right? It was a startup. I think when I joined, there was about 7 people, right? So it wasn't like there was anything to go into that was this backboard you could learn from and spring off of. And so it really was just talking to people and saying, hey, Josh, hey, Joe, like, what do you guys do on a daily? What's your workflow? How are you doing this today? What problems do you have? And then just basically adapting the pitch to that and figuring it out. And at that point too, one of the fun parts of being, a small company and a startup is you're nimble, you're agile, and your whole goal is to just build to suit, right? You work with a power home back in the day, you tighten these companies, and you're really saying, what do you need as a big customer and a valued customer, and how can I build that for you quickly and solve that problem for you? And then the downstream effect is that there's a lot of other companies facing the same challenges. So you get to solve a bunch of things at once. Now, the hard part is, you shift out of that, you go more enterprise, you have a roadmap that is more direct, and that's kind of where we're at today. But in the beginning, it was fun because it was, it's Wild West. You're shooting from the hip. You're building feature after feature, and you're trying to get as much market share as you can, as quick as you can. So really, it was just being adaptable to the customer and making sure that they had the best experience possible. And of course, we had great product market fit, right? So the founders had a really good sense of here's what the industry needs at this point in time. And what we really brought to the table was a really good sales experience that was just easy. It was turnkey. You weren't in 5 different apps. You didn't have to worry about all these variables. What we wanted sales reps to do is do what they do best, which is that interaction at the kitchen table with the homeowner. Let's focus on that. You do what you do best. We'll take care of everything else. Knock the door, request a prop, sit down, talk to mom and dad and the kids, make nice, get the proposal, run through it, and close the deal. We really wanted to dial in on that experience. And I think that providing sales reps that was what really kind of ignited the whole growth of Solo in the beginning. And then, it's been, how can we release more features? And as we move into the new age of regulation and compliance and all these things that we're dealing with in 2024, it's how do you then grow the enterprise level sales so that you have that experience and it's seamless while still protecting homeowners and sales reps from everything. So that's really where we're at today.
In the early days, was there competition, and did you guys have funding, or like what was the landscape like early days?
Yeah, it was a great question. So no funding in the beginning. We did a round, our first round after starting in 2017. We did a Series A in 2022. So it was a full 5 years.
That was your first?
Yeah, yep, that was Series A. So we never taken any money. Bootstrapped, pure sales growth, right? I mean, the first 4 years were triple, double, just scaling that business through sales as fast as we could by getting as much market share. So that was really the focus in the beginning was how can we stay cash flow positive? How can we make this work and just build as fast as we could? In the beginning, there was definitely competition, right? Not as much as we see today, just with the advent of, better, cheaper imaging and technology naturally is just deflationary, right? With time, technology will make everything cheaper. That's just what it is. So whether it's imagery, processing power, compute, finding different people, remote workers, like all of that gets cheaper. So we naturally have more competition today, but I'd say, you had Aurora back then, SolarGraph was around, Sighton was around, and then you had Solo, and those were really the kind of 4 that got talked about.
We in my day, 2014, 15, and a few years onward, we did total manual calculations. This is in Australia. And so we looked at the system design proposal software and like, we don't need that shit. We're badass.
Yeah.
But then one popped up in Australia, which I have not seen anything. I think it was a really mom and pop shop. I actually spoke with the owner multiple times on customer support. Pylon. Pylon?
I've heard of Pylon.
Yeah. That's what we did in Australia. I've not seen them come into the US, but that was early days. That was the first one we ever did. And when it came to the US market, whenever it was 4 years ago-ish, it was Solo. That was it. Because you guys had, I don't know if the exclusive contracts with all the big players, Titan and all those fun people, but that's all I knew. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's I guess what people are using. That's all I really saw.
Well, I guess job well done. I did it, and the lack of knowledge paid off eventually, right?
Yeah.
Now that's I feel like I've heard of Pylon. I don't know if it's from selling, because we would get people from Australia calling over, and we still do today, right? And we don't have an international presence, but we still will get people calling over from Australia, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and just saying, hey, what do you have for us? But we really haven't focused on international yet. So I wonder if
it's difficult with proposal software because you need data sets that are specific to certain regions, and there's so many things, fire setbacks or whatever, that are super specific location based. Australia is its own thing. It's like 5-10 years ahead of everybody, but in many ways it's 5-10 years behind the US specifically for software, which is really interesting. I built a solar door knocking app in 2017 for my team in Australia, and everyone thought I was an absolute madman. But then I came to the US and a few years back and saw that the software was so much more, well, it wasn't not advanced, but so much more than Australia. It sort of excited me and inspired me to go into software and solar. But yeah, it's interesting. We also get Australians asking about resources for Australia because I still don't think there's a lot of Australian specific tech and software, at least relative to the US. Do you guys, you're US specific, right? No other markets?
US specific, no other markets right now. We've kind of dabbled in Canada and Puerto Rico, but I would say that is, statistical outlier, not enough to make a dent. So.
Sure.
Yeah, but you are right about, US just has a ton of tech. It's kind of you've got, Silicon Valley and Palo Alto and all this stuff. And it's, there's a ton of it there, but that does surprise me because Australia is certainly a tech hub of its own. You read some of the reports and there's a lot that's going there, right?
A bit, much more now. So at least in my day, their two finest providers was Bright. They actually came a bit later, and Certegy EasyPay. I think it's called Hum now. Bright was founded by Mike Cannon Brooks, who is the founder of Jira, Atlassian.
Oh,
wow. You know that company? Huh? So it was getting started, and the tech side of Australia was starting to come in. But at least until I sort of transitioned to the US market, it was still really rudimentary. Like, for example, so Certegy is the Good Leap of US, right? It's like number one, number two finest provider, right? I was the first one ever to build out their API for solar purchases.
No way.
And I would stay in Bright's office they had in Sydney, and I would fly up there a few times a month to help them build out their API. So this is like 2017, 2018. So it was really, it was rudimentary. But I was like, hey guys, API, you need to get this shit going because people are going to be able to do stuff. We had to really, I had to have drinks with the CEOs and like hype them up and convince them, hey, there is a place for software, and opening that up in solar. And, they eventually caught on to it. But the US is, in terms of tech and software, definitely years ahead, I would still say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. And I think too, that 17, 18 timeline, it was still tech was still pretty fresh in solar in America as well, for sure. Like you're saying, it was probably ahead of Australia, but you even look at the last 5 years of technology and it's so fast now. It's truly remarkable. And solar aside, just, even in the last year with AI, kind of coming back again. I don't know how much you've read about it, but AI's had 3 different booms and then winters. And we're kind of in our 4th iteration of it now, and we'll see if it's real this time. But everything is moving so fast today. It's really too hard to keep up with everything.
Yeah, that's a good question of whether you guys are implementing. But I'm always the guy that looks at, for example, something like AI, and I'm like, I'm going to wait until I see practical use cases. And then usually the hype goes, and then the small amount of practical use cases start to come apparent. So about 6 months ago, we really started diving into it, specifically with sales support, like call analysis and feedbacks and summaries and scoring metrics based off of like objective data sets. So sales rep goes through a pitch, analyzes that call compared to a bunch of other calls and gives them scores out of 10, and they can track those scores. Like, that's practical. But, of course, what was it? It was like a year ago, right? Every tech company powered by AI or .ai.
Yeah, slap the sticker on. It's like the Corolla with the S, just sport, and you're ready to go faster. Yeah.
The interesting transition that I'm hearing right now is we're realizing that AI is not a product, it's a feature, right? So it can help you build features. It's not a product in and of itself. You can't just wrap ChatGPT and then charge people for it. You have to actually have practical applications within your software for it to be worthwhile. I think that's a good way to approach it.
And I don't mind that assumption at all. I think that's a good way to label it. So Goldman Sachs published a report not too long ago that was basically like we've sold $1 trillion worth of AI hardware. Your GPU, your CUDA clusters, your NVIDIA, all these things have been sold. Where is the money that generates? Where is the revenue? Because if you want an ROI, you got to make at least 1 trillion plus a reasonable return plus interest and all these things. So you're looking at what, $1.82 trillion that you'd need to see from this. But they talked about one of these things, I forget the example or the industry, but it was essentially you implemented all this hardware into your system. And by the time you're finally realizing your ROI or getting an ROI from it, it was time to rip it out and put in new hardware because things were so much faster. Mm. So the risk we run now is we've oversold AI as far as a hardware component. We won't get the ROI before it's time to get something better. So it'll be interesting to see, but you're exactly right that it's just everything's powered by AI. I mean, even the golf clubs I bought earlier in the summer, right? The Callaway powered by AI, and you're like, well, it's a golf club. But
golf clubs?
Yeah. I mean, the sweet spots of your club and how many people hit it. You're like, oh, okay, sure. I mean, that's fine. I get the buzzword, but no, and Solo's been looking at AI and machine learning for a long time. Not getting into semantics, but 99% of AI today is just machine learning. And you know that, Josh, from being in tech, and Joe as well. So we employ that, right? We've got a lot of different stuff. We've got PhDs that are working in computer vision and all different kinds of stuff on the back end, building really sophisticated tech that I don't know if I'm even capable of speaking of, but yeah, there's people smarter than me with bigger brains than me here working on the AI ML stuff that we've got going on.
I was actually, we were we'll move on from AI after this, I promise. We were really putting a lot of time into some sort of automated proposal generation type of thing. We're like, okay, how do we implement this? And ocular recognition was a big one, using AI specifically for looking at a roof, trying to break down the layers, removing everything but the roof, then calculating square footage based off of the pixel diameter or dimensions of the photo. But yeah, it's there's I don't think we were smart enough to pull that off. We found other methods, but there's so many interesting things when it does get to that point, especially with visual inputs that could really, really make it interesting, even just for visualization of a design, customer facing visualization of it. That's going to start looking really cool. I'm sure you guys are working on all of that, but that's interesting. Maybe not specifically for the sales rep or the accuracy, improving the accuracy, but just for customers to understand, oh, okay, well, I'm looking at a top-down picture. I don't know what that is, but oh, cool, that's an awesome visualization of what it's going to look like. I think that's going to be cool in the next coming years and how that's implemented.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you. And especially as we get more into, it's clear that solar has to be, I'll call it more detailed in how it is sold, and more detailed, meaning a better understanding from homeowner to sales rep of what they're buying and what it will do in return for them. So I agree with you 100% that you're going to have to really walk them through it. And if you're not willing to, I mean, if you still want to go old school with pen and paper and stuff like that, it's just getting to be too big of a purchase with too much attention on it right now as we move forward, that I think you're going to have to use tools like that for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Speaking of being innovative and having tools, I know you guys aren't staying on your laurels here. You guys have been, leading the industry for a while, but what's new? What do you guys innovate? I know you got Gemini and really upgrading your accuracy, but can you just tell us a little more about what's new with Solo?
Yeah, definitely. I sometimes like to think of how easy my life would be if we just ran a skeleton crew and just sat there. It would make my life and everyone's life so much easier, but that's not the path we've chosen. As you said, we've always wanted to be the innovative group. We feel very strongly that we always have been, right? We feel like we did a big shift in how solar was sold and the ease in which it's done. And that's something that we've carried on ever since the very beginning. So, with Gemini as kind of a marquee item, right? It's the big thing there. The tagline is that it's an upgrade to everything. And it truly is, not in the sense that the features that you're getting today and the ability to produce a more accurate, repeatable estimate for homeowners, that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. The real thing is how we constructed it and built it from an actual kind of developmental framework perspective. So if we kind of break it apart, you've got Gemini elevator pitch, right? It's a far more accurate, capable design system of producing repeatable, accurate results for homeowners and reps, right? So you've got fire setbacks built in, all customizable. You've got the better roof measurements. You have the AI and ML that's built in there as well. You've got the ability to view the home in 3D. We can design faster. We have auto panel placement, and the list goes on and on and on. And that's kind of step one, right? Is how can we get something better in the reps and the user's hands so that when they sell solar, they feel more confident and comfortable, but the homeowner also knows that they're getting a better, more accurate forecast of what solar will do. So that's kind of step one. Step two was, that's great. I mean, I can say fancy words all day long here and everywhere else, but who gives a shit unless it actually works? So the biggest thing then was, how do we go to the biggest testing agency we could find to prove the methodology in a very thorough, expensive way of saying what we did was fantastic and here's all the steps and then here's the results. So we're going to launch here in the next week or two. It's looking like July 29th, July 30th. You'll see our full validation report coming out, which tested the methodology by which we create our proposals. So timber soiling method, did we account for all of the different irregularities across the regions, right? The Southwest is going to have less rain than the Northeast, but they'll also have less trees than the Northeast as well. How do you factor in every aspect of all these regions and states? So we did about 2,500 homes over 16 different states in the country. Results came back fantastic. They came back better than we'd hoped for and better than we thought. So we were extremely, extremely excited about that. So we'll be releasing that soon. One big thing we did, I guess I should say two big things we did was, one, we found what we believe is the best partner in testing, which is DNV. And they're a huge global multinational group that does all kinds of energy efficiency testing. And they do it as a true test. So with the NREL test, you might see they do 4 homes in Denver, 4 homes in LA, and you compare results to a model. So you're using a model to compare to a model with 8 homes. That doesn't sound very efficient to me. So what we did was work with SolarEdge to get monitoring data for 2,500 homes and then actually checked our production estimates on real life. And if you're familiar with kind of, PE and stuff, you do little vintages of the years in which you deploy your funds. We've got vintages for 2020, 21, and 22 installs, and then the accuracy by state for each of those installs based on real life 1, 2, 3 year production data. So we went full blown overboard proving this methodology. And then the third pillar of that, and probably the biggest one, is as Solo has always been used to date, the proposal itself is all of the compute, you could say. And so when you request a proposal, the engine and everything is all in that proposal. What we wanted to do this time was actually separate out the design engine and the production engine from the face, which is the proposal, so that we could use this as a client to build better, faster, different products. And it's working out really, really well. So Ivan is our kind of back end engine. And then you've got the proposal, which is a client to itself, even though we're within the same company of Solo. This is allowing us to build shade reports and DXF and roofing, different measurements tools, and all kinds of products a lot faster than we ever could before. And then within our back-end production engine, we built an entirely different tool that we call Argus that allows us to run over 200,000 simulations with real-world data, and we can tweak any independent variable in real time to see what's happening and how we can make the design system better. So giant overhaul, probably said way too many words there, but there's just a giant overhaul of the tech. And that really is, instead of feature dumping, it is a giant step forward that allows us to build the next several years of our roadmap.
Was that change in infrastructure something you guys were doing for a while? Because obviously with software, when you build a certain way, if you keep scaling it up, there's limitations. So it sounds like you guys saw some opportunity to go, hey, let's stop before we continue. Let's revamp this infrastructure so we can do 10x cooler things in the future. Was that sort of the mentality there?
Exactly. Yep. Modularity helps a lot. As when you're building it, you want to break these things into microservices and different things that you can work with, and that has all kinds of tech benefits, right? You pull out a production engine, and then any errors or issues that are then insulated in your other products and tools. So 100% exactly what you said, Josh, was just better and faster.
Are you guys looking to go horizontal too? Just, since you're adding things, are you looking to stay in solar only? Or are you looking at maybe roofing and all these other, different companies you can start getting your hands in?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're looking at everything right now, and I think if 2023 and 2024 has taught any and all of us in the industry a single thing, it should be that you got to focus on a lot of things. You have to do it responsibly, right? I think we're seeing some of the companies pay the price for going too far, too quick.
Yeah.
They're spreading too thin. You get over your skis in the solar world, right? Where, and you guys know this better than me, is you can be out lending your sales reps the money for the commissions. You're waiting on the lenders to give you the money, and you're still waiting on PTO for 30% of your outstanding installs. And before you know it, you're dried up and overextended, and there's not an answer. And so I think that's where it comes into the horizontal plays. We're definitely considering, but I think the whole industry this year now is just thinking, okay, how do we play smarter and place better bets as we're moving forward?
You guys looking at different verticals like electrification or efficiency in the future, or working on it now, or can you talk about it?
I can tell you as much as I can tell you. We're definitely working on it, and batteries are going to be a bigger and bigger thing as we move forward. Electrification, HVAC, home efficiency. We're trying to build a platform where partners and people we work with, whether it's home warranties and insurance providers to the guys doing the hardware, it's trying to make that as easy and as accurate as possible to integrate. Like you mentioned, Josh, with the API back in the day, there's still that issue, right? Of a brand new company. Do you have your API and Swagger documentation ready? Do you know how to integrate? Do you know what the endpoints mean and how they work? And our big goal is, how do we create a platform where everybody wanting to participate can participate quickly and easily through endpoints and stuff that we've set up. So that's definitely something we're working on, is expansion vertically, horizontally, additive products. How do we make that all just easy? And that's always been our mantra, is let's make it just as easy as possible for everyone to join in.
So I guess a follow-up is, like, the ultimate road down that easy process thing, when you start automating the more complex processes, when you start getting to the core root of the intuitive UI, as it becomes easier and easier and more accurate, do you guys see a path to a DTC product down the road when the market's more mature enough to self-purchase? Because that's a natural path towards that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. We've definitely had conversations about it, right? Is if we're moving this way, and all the you said that, Josh, and all the sales reps' ears are bleeding right now, hearing that it could be D2C for different people. I mean, you see the market too, when a installer moves from a dealer model to even having a direct arm, you feel that friction immediately, because they just think, well, the direct team can go faster and cheaper because they're working direct. So it's definitely something that we've thought about, we've talked about. I wouldn't say there's concrete plans laid and in any product development on the roadmap right now, but it's something we're definitely trying to time and look at. And how do we serve all markets? Our biggest thing is, all ships rise with the tide, and how can we enable where we need to, so that everyone's able to kind of play a part in the green revolution. But that's an enticing one. I don't know what you guys have heard about the transition so far, but there's definitely a lot of buzz about DTC.
I tried it in Australia. So 2018, so still relatively early. The equivalent of 2018 is probably, 2011, 2012 in the US. Started a side brand alongside my EPC called Cloud Solar. The idea was, because we were also one of the first people that started running digital marketing campaigns on Facebook. Like, we had the largest Facebook ad budget in Australia, 2017 or something. And then the $1 billion companies figured it out and they took us over. But we're like, okay, we put two and two together. Let's build a platform, run ads. They make the purchase there and right there and then. This is why I was building the API for the finance companies, because we integrated the API right into our platform so people could run applications. Never been done before. We ran it. We got people to the point where they were applying for finance. They were filling in all the information. They were doing everything but signing the documents. And so one thing, all they would do is message us saying, "This all looks great. Can I just speak to a consultant? I have a few questions." i.e., we have to book them in for a bloody sales appointment. But in order for us to get them to that point, we had to drop our front end pricing to the point where it was the lowest pricing they had seen, which in our eyes, like, that's fine because we're not paying sales guys heavy commissions to do so. But then on the back end, they're like, I need to speak to a sales guy anyway. So then we would get screwed over because we don't have margin in that job, but we have to pay the sales guy anyway. So I think maybe it would be different in Australia now, but for me, the D2C self-service type of platform is nowhere close in the US simply because the market is so immature. 4%, 5% market penetration. Australia is at 33 to 40% market penetration nationally. What we saw in Australia was the market gets super comfortable with being able to take action after they've had the product one or two more times. So we're in first generation solar in the US. No one knows about solar. No one. Even though people would say, oh, certain markets are oversaturated. You have no idea what a saturated solar market looks like. So I think it's going to take a while where we have second, third generation solar owners at the point where it's like a fridge. I know what solar is. I know the brand. I know exactly what I want. Just give me the thing so I can design it, and I'll make the purchase online, and I'll sign up for financing. And I don't think we're anywhere close there yet. But we are as well thinking about it. Cool. That's definitely the future eventually. What's the timing going to look like? When do we start spending resources into creating that?
Yeah,
or it just turns into a very expensive lead generation funnel. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really, really does. That's such a good perspective, Josh, of just once you're a second or third time buyer and you want to cut out that commission and that help and just take the money. You know, it's kind of like Homey or Redfin with real estate, right? You get into that point, you're like, I don't need a real estate agent. Just like send me a guy, give me half the commission check, and we're good to go. We have talked to a couple. I personally talked with a couple of people who have tried the model, and it's kind of a digital sale approach, right? And you can get the deposit and get kind of a LOI type approach where you people have the intent. But I think you're exactly right that right now the cost of sale, if you're looking at a $65,000, $70,000 system, there's not many people that are first time buyers willing to just do that all online, all alone as of today. And maybe the mortgage model is kind of an intermediate, right? Where you can just call anytime. They're flat capped, 800 a sale, and they help out all day long. I think we'll see some of that. I mean, and I think it's clear too that we've seen this year the cost of sale for solar has gone up through the roof, right? You got your rep commissions and then your permitting process are two kind of milestones on that installation process that are quite expensive today.
Yeah, I think the only way it would work right now is without spending anything on marketing is a personal brand or a brand that is so well known, Tesla, cough, cough, where they have that audience already. They trust whoever, and they're we talk a lot about content creation and stuff with our audience, how important that is. I don't think anyone has that other than Tesla at this point. But if someone out there had a personal brand or a company brand with 100,000 followers and they just added value to them all day long, they've been following them for months or years, and they're like, you know what, I will go solar now. Then maybe they click the link and they see it's that solar is set up by this person or this company and they go. But other than Tesla in solar space, I don't really think there's anyone else out there. But that's the only way it would work for me right now, I think.
I think you're probably right that Tesla really is the only name brand. We obviously had ADT in solar. I think they were probably the only other one with just a
the thing with ADT is that's a company. Tesla is a company, and Elon Musk, right? The personal branding there, that personal head it's Elon Musk has way more followers than every single one of his companies. I think that's the missing piece.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. I don't personally subscribe to this conspiracy theory, but there is the conspiracy theory that the market is being artificially or accelerated in its compression so that bigger players can buy in at a cheaper price, right? And you see that at times with the big banks and the big people. They're able to compress an entire industry to then get the price point they want to bring it right back up. I don't know if I subscribe to that. We've seen the rate increases with the loan market in 23. I feel like we're the biggest kind of accelerant to seeing where we are today. But that's one of those theories that you're going to have some more of those big name brands kind of come in once the price point's right for them.
Yeah, happened in Australia. A handful of companies took 70% market share in a matter of 2 or 3 years. I don't know if the market went down before they did that, but it will eventually happen. But now we're seeing all the big guys fall. So who's sort of at the helm there doing that?
Well, and
let's name that.
to your point, it's one of those things as well where, I mean, even though in our world, right, you've got we all know the names, right? You've got Our World in Arizona, Titan that unfortunately just went out, but yet we all know these names. But if you're a consumer buying solar for the first time, they don't mean that much to you because you're just like, I'll buy this once in 20 years, and like I don't know. I mean, same way if I had to go buy like home insulation or window, like I don't care who it is, like just tell me who's the best and I'll buy that. So I think you are right that if you get a, Tesla is for sure the leader in the sense of who's the most reputable or I guess well-known, notorious brand that sells solar. Tesla for sure. After that, you really don't buy it enough to be familiar with the name brands that are there.
Yeah.
So
I heard breaking news: Solo is going direct to consumer one day.
one day, using Josh's timeline of somewhere in the future, 8 years away, sure, maybe we'll see.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
I still have another question about Solo. Just a big part of it is what it costs, right? And I guess there's different ways to charge. Are you guys innovating that way, or you feel like that model you guys have, where you're charging per proposal, makes sense and it's a way to scale and keep going?
Yeah, that's such a good question too, because there's obviously different pricing models in this space, right? You've got a credit-based system where you preload it for a year and you kind of draw down. You've got a per close system that ties your successes in one for one. You've got a consumption-based model like Solo, where it's per proposal. With our new products we have coming out, you'll see some changes and some ability to save big, right? I'll say that not to leak too much, but we're coming out with some very creative ways of pricing to lower the costs. I think we understand that the market's in the place where it's in, and we've always been a partner. I don't think anyone could ever accuse us of not sharing in the pain that the industry feels. We have been, I think, first and foremost in that all the time. I've personally, over 8 years, brokered 1,000 deals like that, where it's like, hey man, we're struggling. We're waiting on PTO. We had a couple loans get clawed back. What can we do? And it's always, well, let's work with you, because we understand that our success and your success is tied, right? I don't want to rip anybody off, secure anyone, take all their money. It's a joint effort. So we do have the per proposal cost right now. What we focus on doing is, for that price per proposal, how can we continue to deliver more and more and more value? So for instance, 3 years ago, it was, here's your proposal, here's some integrated partners, here's DocuSign, a couple other things, adders and whatnot. Since then it's been, rates are going up every day. Okay, great. We'll build an API that checks Good Leap, Dividend, Mosaic, Sunlight every night, pulls in new rates, new loans, so you never have to worry about it being off. We built that. Here you go. It's free. Well, we have obligations to our lenders to make sure we have the right dispersion of loans to the different lenders. Okay, great. Here's lender priority. There you go. It's free. Hey, we need the ability to make sure we're selling in the right areas and reps don't request proposals out of area. Okay, here's Salescape. There you go, for free. And we do that again and again and again and again. And, internally, what we get frustrated about is take advantage of all these free tools, right? We're building them into the proposal, into the software, into the technology. And as the person responsible for increasing the price, we're not, right? We're keeping that value add. We're making sure that you're getting more and more month after month through Solo. And even right now with people on Gemini, no price increase, way better products, long development. It's expensive. Devs are expensive. Built it in, no cost increase. Let's get more value into the hands of our users so that they stay, they see the value, and then we can kind of expand from there.
That makes sense. And you said that you're, feeling pain also. The industry is definitely, feeling pain. And how does it affecting Solo? And how do you think the industry is going to come out of this?
Yeah, we like I said, we share the pain. We've always been big about that. Our late COO, Dan Bodley, he passed away about 1.5 years ago, but he was always big. That was one of his mantras on every call with every customer. It's like, we want to share the pain. Like, in no way do I want you to feel like we're not friends or we're not partners. And what we see today, probably the biggest thing, right, is when we look at, total addressable market of people eligible for our products. As companies go bankrupt and go out of business and there's just less sales, we all get hurt, right? Whether you're a credit system, you're tied into closes, you're per proposal. If there's less people to sell to, you make less money. And that's the same for installers, sales groups, and everybody, right? Less people to do the work. Customers are getting crunched. Homeowners are feeling the credit crisis as well. I think I saw last quarter, Q2 24 was the highest credit card debt in American history. I mean, everyone's getting squoze. So we feel it all the way down the line. So the pain is felt. We're trying to do the best we can. Let's keep developing, keep delivering good products, make sure that our customers are taken care of, make sure they have all that they need to be able to succeed. And that's really what we're focusing on today. If I had to give a prediction for 25, I think at this point, right, it's how do you sail from, United States to England? How do you cross the ocean and make it there in one piece? And we're all going through this gauntlet right now that is the solar coaster. And I think everyone's trying to just hunker down, get super efficient, go lean, make sure you're making sharp, smart decisions so that you're there in 25. Because I think that once we get to 25, 26, 27, those are expansion years. And those who survive are poised for that big updraft.
More utility rate increase requests submitted by utility companies in the past 12 months than the 2008 financial crisis or the 1980 stock market crash. No end in sight. The problem that the product we're selling has never been bigger. And it's just a blip. That's what always keeps me going. It's like, maybe the product is the issue. No, the product is solving a problem that's ever increasing. So as long as you hold on to that bull through the fire, it can't not be good very, very soon.
Well, and if you look at, all the big boys that spend bajillions of dollars, the Goldman, the Wells Fargo, these giant groups that are investing in, the ground that plants the seeds that goes into the panel, right? These guys that are just huge vertical players, they're all predicting compounded annual growth of 30% through 2030, right? They're all saying this is a blip. It'll survive. Every industry's gone through this. It's not special. It's painful, but it's not different or unique. It's just a cycle, and that's where we're at. So I agree with you entirely that it's, we'll come out, we'll survive. You got to hold on to the bull. And once you do, the grass really is greener on, same industry, other side of this year. I think it's a lot greener.
Well, speaking of changing and evolving, I know you guys got a new CEO and, the executive board there. You tell us more about that?
So no new CEO yet. So we had Dan Larkin, who's obviously CEO, mutually parted ways in a really great way. He's off pursuing other adventures and doing other things. They named me president and CRO. And then there's an open hunt for the CEO right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Apologize.
No worries at all. So we've got, fantastic team. We've got a guy named Garrett Galley, who's our CTO, Matt Crumley, CFO. We've got great product guys. We've got a good team, but yeah, we're on the look for a CEO right now. There's an open hunt. So we'll be continuing that as we go.
It's amazing, man. So if this is Gemini is brand new, right? Like you're literally launching once this broadcast, probably the same day or that same week. So how do people find out more about it? What's the website? What's the way to contact you?
Yeah. So you can go to gemini.gosolo.io. And that is a microsite specifically dedicated to all the innovations that are Gemini. Or you can go to GoSolo.io, just our regular website, and you've got a backlink there that'll take you over to that site. And then obviously, got the success team here. One thing we consistently score the best at when we look at NPS across the industry is our success and support teams. They do phenomenally well. So created tons of training for them. So you can always call in anytime. You can get a demo from them if you're an existing customer. Sales team's here if you want a demo live about the new product. They're always here. So website's the easiest way. Just go solo.io and that'll have all that information for you.
Hey, Josh, I got a last one. Do you have anything else for our friend David Wilson?
I'm good. I mean, I can talk software and software business all day long, so I got to hold my tongue.
Well, did you leave us all off with any last thoughts, David? Anything you want to talk to the solar community about, either about Solo or yourself?
I'll just say, I think that one of the things, and Josh actually hinted on this earlier, and I don't think we should ever view it as a negative word, but the word immature. And it is a young industry. So if we want to substitute young for immature, we could play semantics all day, whatever you want to call it. It's a young, up and coming, crazy hot and growing industry. I mean, that is what it is. So for better or for worse, we're in it. We're having fun. I think a lot of us are having success, and we definitely did the last 3 years before we had this credit crunch. But I think the big thing is, as the industry demands better people and better performance, we need good players to step up and do that, right? The honesty, the integrity, the morals, making sure you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's, you're developing a strong business I think that is more important now than ever. And if you needed proof, you just got to look at the 40% bankruptcy rate across the board, right? It's businesses that you can't point to one single thing and say they did this wrong or that wrong. And even the statement of saying they just weren't ready, those are wrong. But the people that are prepared for all circumstances and planning for that stuff, I mean, those are typically the ones that kind of make it out. And so I think as an industry, if we work together in promoting ourselves, it's honest sales, it's clean deals, it's avoiding the big time pieces that say solar sucks and people are lying. If we can avoid that and grow the industry, it's better for all of us, right? It goes back to more homeowners being interested. Like Josh said, we're not even at 5% adoption nationwide yet. We're not even close. And then you're going to have second and third time buyers. Let's not ruin the race or end the race before it even starts, right? Because we are in the early phases. And so I think we got to levy that immaturity and youth to a much, much bigger, better industry as we move forward.
Awesome, man. Really appreciate you dropping by. Great message. Great, being on here. Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you guys as well, Joe and Josh. I appreciate the time, chance to come on, talk a little bit about Solo and software sales, everything else. It's a good time.
That was David Wilson, CRO of Solo. This was the SolarPulse Podcast with Josh and Joe. Appreciate you, David.
Thanks, David. Catch you later.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.